Hi, my name is James Angela. This is Jade Jaime, and this is the Back to Human podcast. So, last Thursday, we welcomed our little baby boy in this world. You may see him, he may make a little appearance, he may bless us with his presence. Yep, there he is. Last Thursday, we welcomed baby Journey into this world, baby number two for us. And while it is fresh on our minds, we wanted to dive into our or Jade's pregnancy and explain kind of her thought process and why we decided to choose a free and wild birth route and just what that entails, what that looked like, what her experience was like, what my experience was like, because it's 50-50, right?
Um,
Takes two.
it's 99-1.
I don't know it.
I mean, it's 50-50 for sure.
Yeah. But no, we are gonna dive into Jade's pregnancy and also her labor and birth of baby Journey while it is still fresh in our minds. So, without further ado, Jade, welcome back
Thank
to the show.
you. It's always a pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, fourth time I think now, something like
Give
that.
or take.
So normally I have some questions in mind and we kind of follow a little bit of an outline. We'll derail every once in a while, but since this is just us and it's been a while since I've produced an episode, we're kind of just going to go free flow with this. We do have some questions from our audience that we will answer, but I kind of want just like a honest discussion and see where we're both at during this process. So, Jade,
Yes.
can you remind us what your first pregnancy looked like and how that birth went?
Oh boy. Well, um, you could always refer back for the full story. I'm not sure which episode that was, but we can plug it in the show notes if you want. But pretty much, long story short, with the first birth, it was a lot of education. Obviously, first time mom, so and I'm very much like a type A, got all A's in school, very analytical person, so I figured if I can go ahead and just get as much information as I can and take as many classes as humanly possible, then I'll be prepared enough for my birth, and that was perfect because that's the tools that I had at the time. Went to 40 weeks and a couple of days with Jax. Meanwhile, I was prepared to go way over that because I hear, right? We always hear that first time moms go a little bit over 40 weeks. That's typically just the norm. The average is literally 41 weeks and 4 days or something like that for first time moms. So I was mentally preparing myself for that, physically preparing myself for that, eating nourishing foods, supplementing with, strategic supplementation for pregnancy and for setting myself up for success in postpartum. We hired a midwife. So this was a personal recommendation from one of our friends. We didn't shop around that much. We just went based off the personal recommendation and hired her right away. Even though there were a couple of what I would consider personal red flags that I ignored throughout the prenatal care period. I didn't feel necessarily connected to this particular midwife. I didn't feel like I was getting her full attention in the prenatal visit. She seemed preoccupied, and I just ignored it. And that was, again, very indicative, very much a perfect mirror to my own conversations of what I felt like I was worth at the time. I felt like I was worth half the attention. I felt like I was worth um, it just being okay. How would I know? I don't know any better. I'm not a doctor. What am I supposed to know? This is the standard of care.
Mhm.
So we did hire a midwife for a home birth. All the way up to 36 weeks, I was like, let's just do the birth center. Let's do birth center. I don't feel comfortable doing it at home. And then at 36 weeks, 36th hour, I went ahead and just changed my mind. I said, I actually want to do it at home. So we, I initiated labor at home. And by that, I mean, just waited until my body went into labor spontaneously, again, at 40 weeks plus 2 days. And um, everything was pretty straightforward. We called the midwife. She came, and I would say around 6 hours into labor, she had called an ambulance for an emergency transfer without me knowing. There wasn't an ask. There was just a call made, and she said the ambulance is on its way. And I was very confused by this, mostly just because I thought that everything was going fine. I, in my body, did not have any sense of alarm bells going off or an intuitive hit that my baby or me were not okay. So that was very confusing. And one of the comments that she had made at the time, again, I don't want to spend too much time on just like harping on the past. I'd rather really just share the experience that we just had. But one of the comments that stuck out to me, because I said, no, 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 I don't want to go to the hospital. I want to continue birthing at home. She says, oh, well, you can continue birthing at home. If you could have this baby in the next 3 minutes before the ambulance comes, then you could have that. And I was like, okay. So it just felt like I was on a timeline, somebody else's timeline for the entire pregnancy with Jax and even the labor. So we transferred to the hospital. Finally, I was in the ambulance and I was just left alone. So my labor actually got to progress in its natural way. Pushed for an additional hour and a half at the hospital, like a crazy person, with everyone yelling and coaching and screaming at me. I felt like I was at a freaking soccer event. And my baby was born naturally, vaginally in the hospital. No epidural, no fentanyl, none of that fun stuff. No cutting, no stitches. Well, I did have stitches, but that's because I had torn because I was being coached to push so hard for, fo- was it 4 hours? I was pushing for a very long time. That's unnatural. That's not me. So yeah. And then I wound up getting X amount of stitches, don't remember, but we stayed 3 days in the hospital, which is, if you've ever stayed in a hospital, you know that that's not necessarily fun. Crappy lighting, constant interruptions, being hooked up to a machine, and sheets and gowns that someone may have just passed away in a couple of hours ago. You never know.
No, come on, they're sterile. But
Still, still. Anyway, and then it was just very disorienting. It was very, very disorienting, and I found it very challenging in the immediate postpartum period to connect with my baby and find like that authentic, full of love, bursting with oxytocin connection with him. And I feel like a lot of that had to do with the way that the labor went. So that that was that. That was the first labor. That was the
yeah,
first birth.
not a very fun experience and definitely was capped off with 3 night stay in the hospital, which was not fun. We were very uncomfortable. No one could sleep. They wouldn't allow mom to sleep because they're always coming in. And the reason why I really wanted you to bring that up is because sharing that story, yes, not harping on the past and not just staying stuck there, counter to the experience that we just had here at home was two sides of the spectrum, two completely different sides of the spectrum. And I don't believe that many women are aware of exactly what is possible. So painting that image and then kind of just sharing the things that you didn't want, all the different interventions, the which we denied anyway, but the coach pushing, which was confusing to me too, because I was like, "You're just getting comfortable. Why? I thought she was just starting. What's the problem here?" She was fine, breathing properly. And in hindsight, yeah, it was our first time. We didn't shop around, and me personally, I don't really know that I would know how to advocate for you. So, say if we were to go with the midwife this time, I have a little bit more experience under my belt. I know what is kind of normal or what's expected and what isn't really necessary at this point, especially after reviewing some of your notes and some of your coursework. So now let's get into the good stuff.
Yay.
How was this previous birth last week? How'd that go for you?
Absolutely incredible. I've heard multiple times from multiple women that a second birth can actually have provide such a great and grand opportunity for healing. The first postpartum that you go through, I'm trying not to cry, is it can be very challenging for a lot of women, especially if you have had some sort of outcome um, in your birth experience that was unfavorable. It's very common for me to hear that about other births from other women. Oh, we were a home birth, but we wind up transferring to the hospital for X amount of reasons. Or I was a hospital and then it wound up in a C-section, or I was whatever, you know. It's very common for me to hear this, even though it's not normal. Um, and the number of births don't necessarily matter, because I actually recently attended earlier this year a mom who was on her fifth baby, and this was the most challenging birth for her. It was very, very, very challenging. Meanwhile, the whole birth team was there, like, oh, this is the fifth baby. It's just going to slide right out. You know, she's an experienced mama. You know, she's got this, right? And it's not like that birth was any less sacred or magical or beautiful or whatever than the rest of them. It's not like she's going to love that child any less, but it's just a product, and again, a direct mirror to where you're currently at. How you birth is how you live. And that's just where she was at that current time. And it doesn't make it good, bad, or any other story around it. However, um, I think it's very cool to just see the differences in the first pregnancy, the first labor experience, to the second pregnancy and the second labor experience. What would be different is that in this second pregnancy, it was very emotional. Whew, for me. Okay. Well, for both of us, because he had to deal with me. But um, there was just so much stuff that kept coming up, and I was just riding the waves and riding the roller coaster of those emotions and of those mental fluctuations, and being a witness to the mental chatter and the fluctuations of the mind. And that is how I prepared for this pregnancy. Granted, I'm always going to be taking care of myself nutritionally, supplementing, moving my body in very advantageous ways, pelvic floor fitness, all those fun things. But that's just a part of who I am now. I consider that the status quo of just me, pregnant or not. So, really, the main work and the main preparation in this second pregnancy was allowing the energy of the emotional challenges to come up, witness them, and allow them to flow out of my body, so that I did not bring that crap into my birth and unconsciously manifest or create something in the birth or even the postpartum period that was completely unnecessary.
Mhm. And, definitely it helped that I had previous experience because I'm like, "Okay, her hormones are kinda elevated now," and during the first one, I didn't know what to expect at all. So there's like emotional outburst. Maybe she's a little bit upset, which we're gonna get into a little bit later on because I was just really interested to hear that you actually said what you said the other day when you were discussing kind of prep for this. What work do you think, since you're saying that birth is a direct mirror of where you're at,
Yeah.
were you inspired to do something different because of the first birth and the first outcome? Did that light the fire under your ass to do something a little bit different? Or what work do you think that it was that allowed you to now, if birth is a reflection of where you're at, completely remove anyone else from the situation and go through this successfully with courage, bravery, strength?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely dissatisfied with with the outcome of the first. Well, let me not say it that way. With the way that the birth ensued and my experience, I was very, very happy with my outcome, which was a beautiful 8 pound healthy baby boy who's absolutely incredible and hilarious. And my life would not be complete without. So, outcome, fantastic. Experience, 2 out of 10.
2 out of 10?
2 out of 10. Okay, because everything was great up until
It wasn't.
until it wasn't anymore. So, um, I was dissatisfied, but again, I still did not know what was possible. So it wasn't until I really decided to, around when Jax was around a year, to fully step into this message that I had actually received when I was very early pregnant with him, which was to become a doula and to support families, and specifically in ushering in life and allowing life to exit. So a birth doula and a death doula. And although I haven't necessarily stepped into that second piece yet, um, I was in a meditation and that came into me and I just started bawling and I'm just like, that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, I don't want to do that. That's weird hours, right? Like it's no, that's just not me. I'm a fitness trainer. I'm in the gym. Let's sweat. Let's get some muscles going and like bing bang boom, end of the day. That's my role. And it was just so incessant over especially after the birth of my son. It was so incessant. It just kept coming in. The message kept coming in. I'm like, all right, fine. I'll take it. So an opportunity had come up. I met virtually. I met my mentor, Wapio, Dan Bartlett from the Matrona, and she's just an absolutely incredible
Human being.
human person.
Yeah.
I can't even, I'm like, she's not even a person. Like she's beyond a person.
It's a
She's
being.
so incredible. Yes, being. And a pseudo adopted grandma. And I decided to get certified as a doula under her, as well as continue an traditional midwifery education for the following 2 years after that. And it was in my course studies with her and kind of like, apprenticing a little bit under her that through the stories that were shared from her and other wise women in that container, that I kind of got so excited and jazzed up about what is actually possible in terms of not only physiology, which I'm a nerd for anyway, but physiology, the spiritual transformation that birth has to offer, and the healing, like I said, that is possible as we age and as we can have subsequent pregnancies. Because the main narrative in a mainstream situation is that with each subsequent pregnancy, it gets harder. Your body doesn't bounce back. It ruins your body, whatever that means. And more kids just equals more stress. And you have a new gray hair for all the kids that you birth. And it's a crap narrative. And I refuse to accept that. And so, anyway, to answer your question, it was more so being in that container of other wise women and hearing their birth stories and how they continued to educate themselves and be a witness and birth keepers to other women in their immediate community, and the stories that they shared about their experiences that got me so jazzed up to be pregnant again and to want that for myself because I heard what was possible for other women.
You heard. So competence breeds confidence. We heard in hypnobirthing what was possible. We were pretty much shown videos every single time that we would show up.
Mhm,
And sure, it gave a little bit of motivation, but actually seeing it for yourself, witnessing it for yourself, and then actually attending
mhm,
a free birth,
mhm.
that had to give you more confidence going into it. And you were rock solid with your decision to free birth, clearly, because we didn't reach out to anyone. What gave you confidence with going with me?
You mean with having you in attendance?
Yeah, I was there. So there. Present.
Well, multiple reasons, but the foundational reason, honestly, being that I understand how crucial the father's role is in the family, and that begins with birth. So the father is quite literally the archangel of the and protects the space around the woman, around his woman and their baby. So a woman is when she feels held and protected in a sacred container that her husband or partner, boyfriend, whatever, her man holds for her, she can traverse a million different universes. And I mean that honestly in the most spiritual sense, but also in the most logical sense. I felt very comfortable exploring different altered brainwave states in the presence of you, um, because I've done it before. Um, and you're my most intimate advocate. Like you've seen me at my best, you've seen me at my worst, you've seen me in extreme amounts of uh, pain and sadness and joy and ecstasy. Like you've seen it all. So there's nobody else in the entire world that I would feel comfortable with witnessing me do it all again. And all within a compressed little time window that is labor and birth.
Mm. Just that the archangel and that the father figure is going to protect the energy.
Mhm.
That's what it felt like in the hospital during the first one. I remember I locked eyes with you and I didn't say anything, or maybe I did. I don't remember it. We were in the whole time vortex portal,
Yeah,
whatever you call it, time dilation. And I just, with my eyes at least, told you that I believe in you, that you could do this. I didn't have any doubt in my mind, and sure enough, you did. And then with this pregnancy as well, I was praying daily before going to the gym in the morning, um, praying that you would have a painless and a fearless birth. And I was praying with conviction, like with confidence that that would be the case too. It was just putting out there. And throughout the pregnancy, there was never a doubt in my mind that you'd be able to go through with this. But I know that that was not the case for you. So
of
if
course.
you want to take this time to be vulnerable, would you mind sharing with the audience, because it is a very possible outcome,
Of course.
what you were kind of going through at the time and what was coming up for you?
You're saying my fears in pregnancy.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm trying to think of where I should even start. So, let me just start by saying this. Um,
Where was this coming from? Share the backstory, because I was aware that this wasn't your thing. Again, I had full confidence in you. I knew that the baby was happy, healthy. We were doing the palpations, the heart rate. I knew that he was kicking in there. So, where were these fears stemming from, and were they yours?
Definitely. Well, I like to take radical responsibility only all the time. Any opportunity that I have to take radical responsibility, I will take it. So as much as I could say, "Oh, these fears were not mine," I feel as if that is almost passing on the responsibility, where I would rather just take it myself. So let me just say that first off. But the backstory with my fear was, and let me just say what the fear was, it was that the baby wouldn't make it. It was that I would have a baby that was stillborn or not breathing or with extreme complications to where all the whole pregnancy would just wind up in a baby that was not okay and not alive. End of story. Um, and the backstory with that, as many unconscious fears stem from, was from my ancestors, from my lineage. And my mom has been challenged with uh, challenges in her fertility for her entire life. Pretty much, I was a miracle that I was even born. Not to flex or anything like that, but so anyway, after I was born, my parents, they wanted more children and they, were going for it. And there was a couple of pre like early miscarriages that my mom experienced, and it was kind of just like there was really no pregnancy that was sticking. My parents did multiple rounds of IVF treatments and things like that, in vitro, the whole deal. And it was just becoming way too much physically, emotionally, and I mean financially for my parents to handle. So, they had kind of eventually just given up on it. But before that had happened, my mom did become pregnant when I was around the age of 4, 4.5, and she had a full term. Bless you, dude. Bless you. She had a full term pregnancy all the way up to 38 weeks, and then she had birthed a stillborn baby girl. So that has I took that on pretty much. I took that on unconsciously as a fear of mine because, oh my God, this is my second pregnancy, right? This happened in my mom's second pregnancy. There was a lot of fear coming up, especially at that 38-week mark. And um, yeah. So anyway, that's that's the backstory. I'm really trying to like not cry on this,
I
but
mean,
it
that's what
is
we're
what
here
it is.
for. That's why I said I wanted to be free flowy and honest. Just it's us.
I just at the age of 5, um, when you're attending a funeral for an infant, I feel like um that's just something that no parent should have to go through, no sibling should have to go through, and I saw the amount of pain that it caused my parents, and, um, so I just had a very real and visceral fear of that coming true in my own life. So, uh, what was your original question?
Well, I mean, this was a recurring emotional. I don't want outburst is not the word that I'm looking for here, but it's a conversation that we were having over and over and over again. And as you stated earlier, how you allowed yourself to process these things and you allowed them to come up. That way you could deal with them and externalize them, which would be through vocalizing it with me, allowing it to actually come out instead of internalizing it and it actually manifest in maybe that situation
Right.
or in some other behavior where now it's just like a downward spiral. You can't get these things out of your head. Things are just going to get worse. And you could try to numb it, you can try to mask it.
Distract yourself.
And it's like these things need to come out. What you internalize is going to manifest externally in another way. So I'm honestly tap, pat on my back here. I'm proud of myself for being able to hold this space for you
Mhm.
and being able to have these conversations because I understood what you were going through, what your experience was uh, in your childhood, and I understood that this is a very real fear for you, even though in my mind and within my soul, I knew that we would have a positive outcome. I can't negate the fact that this was an experience for you guys.
Right.
So, how did this pregnancy, or I guess I would ask, did this birth and this pregnancy, did it provide you any sense of closure from your first experience? And then also closure for your mom's experience, your family's experience?
Yeah, I mean, well, they say when one member of the family, it does does the work of healing, whatever that means, right? I truly believe that healing can really only occur as a direct relationship between that person and God. That's the way that healing is facilitated. But when you heal your own wounds, again, whether they are 100% yours, you created them, it started with you, or something that did not start with you, you heal lineages behind you and moving forward. Um, so yes, 100%. It was very healing that I, got the birth of my dreams and I got a very favorable birth outcome and was able to see what my I was possible. Like what was possible from me, that my body was not broken, that I didn't need to hand my autonomy over to anybody else to have it to be rescued, right? Or any of those things that came as a byproduct of the way that the first birth went. As well as, yes, feeling like I have really like went healed. Yes, just yes. To answer your question, yes. Okay, I'm gonna just keep like rambling and it's not really gonna make sense. Yes, I do. All of it.
You could have answered just yes. That would have worked too.
I know.
I just asked if it provided you closure.
Uh-huh, but women, we have to add all the
I
details.
know. And you
Mhm.
get upset because to the point.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
So tell us about the birth of your dreams then, because we didn't really hear about this labor.
Sure. Um, all right. So backing up, because at this point I am one day shy of being 42 weeks. And I know a lot of times when we're calculating the estimated due date, it can be extremely not accurate because we are calculating that due date based off of a woman's last menstrual cycle and not the actual conception date, as well as not adjusting that due date for her fluctuations in her cycle. I'm not, it's not common that every like the majority of women have a 28-day cycle. Some women have 27, 30, whatever. So adjusting for that cycle. This was not the case. I was very, very pinpointed on when the conception date was and then calculating the due date from that. So, um, 42 weeks, 1 day shy. The last 2, 3 weeks of pregnancy were hell. Let me just put it that way. I could not walk properly. James actually rented me a wheelchair so that way he could wheel me around like a 90-year-old woman out at the park, and I could feel like I was a part of society. So thank you for doing that. Jax had a lot of fun with that as well. But yeah, physically not good. And then again, towards the end, not only hormones, so the estrogen is rising, subsequently, the progesterone is lowering, which equals hi, crazy town. Hello. Lots of anxiousness. That's why a lot of women will feel more fears towards the end of their pregnancy, feel more anxiety as they're getting really, really close to birth. And that was me. So not only do we have the fears that were coming up throughout the entire pregnancy that I was being present with, but now we have that coupled with the hormonal shift of late pregnancy, as well as not being able to walk without feeling like there was a watermelon in my butt. And it's a perfect recipe for just it being very, very, very hard. So that's kind of where we're leading up to. Wednesday night, so the night of the 24th of September, um, James and Jax were out in a different room. They were camping. They were out camping on the couch and just providing me with space to have an uninterrupted night of sleep as much as humanly possible, at 42 weeks pregnant. And so I was very grateful for that. I feel like that supported me a lot in that final week, that last stretch of just being able to get as much rest, as much sleep uninterrupted as humanly possible. So I was alone in the bedroom Wednesday night, and I was going to sleep later and later just because I was also waking up later. So at around 11:30ish PM, I was like, all right, you know what? Let me just try to go to sleep. I'm still not necessarily tired, but let me try. Um, Feels like I closed my eyes for 2 minutes and then I started having like light contractions. So the contractions have been happening on and off for the past 6 weeks at this point. So there was nothing where I was like trying to get too excited about it. Before this, I had told myself, you know what? I'm just going to resign myself to being pregnant forever. That's just what's happening. I'll be 45 weeks pregnant. I'll be pregnant in December. I'll be pregnant for my 31st birthday. It's just going to be what it is. So I just resigned myself to that fact. And I did not want to get overly excited and definitely was not going to wake James up at midnight. So that wasn't happening because he's been entertaining our toddler and also not getting the best nights of sleep. So that wasn't going to happen. So things are moving, bowels are happening. Um, and if anyone who knows birth, they know that that is a telltale sign that the body is getting ready. It's creating the space and contractions are happening and hormones are shifting so that the baby can find its way through. So I was like, okay, maybe this might be it, right? And I again didn't want to get excited, especially because I did not have a night of sleep. I was already up for 18 hours or so. So I laid down and just tried to rest as much as possible, just falling asleep, drifting off in between contractions. At this point, I'm just staying away from my phone. My eyes are closed and I'm just riding the contractions out. They are getting more rhythmic. They are getting more powerful. I'm having to now breathe through them, in for 4, catching the space between, exhale for 8, and I'm counting how many times that's happening. So it's around 3-ish times that that's happening before the contraction starts to fade, and I'm knowing that, okay, these are anywhere between 45 seconds to a minute now, so these are kind of real ones. And again, still alone at this point, which was great. I really had no complaints about that. Um, and it wasn't until around like 3 3:30 in the morning where things started getting really intense for me, and I started to vocalize a little bit more, get a little bit louder. And I'm like, okay, if he wakes up and he comes in, and that's fine. At this point, I still felt like I was okay, but it was starting to get really, really challenging. And um,
So you wouldn't have woke me up.
I mean, it was to the point where I was not getting up. Like, you think that I was gonna just stand up and walk
True.
my happy butt out and be like, "Ah, this is it." Like, no, it was past that point. So, by the time you had come in, it was around 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was just like, "I don't know if I could do this," right? Oh, we love hearing that.
Yeah, I walked in and you said that, and I'm just like, okay, well, that's literally the thing before the tipping point,
Yeah.
and then the baby's coming soon after that. So I was like, and then we had a false alarm on Tuesday where you mentioned that you were potentially going into labor, and that's why
Mhm,
I was kind of just waiting nearby
mhm.
with my coffee in hand as you were
Yeah.
so pleasantly. But
We'll go into that in a second, but
yeah. But I was, not under the impression that baby was coming, and then all of a sudden you said that, I noted it, and then I'm timing your contractions, I'm looking at my phone, I'm like, "Okay, there's a little bit of rhythm here." And then go ahead and you could tell the rest of the story.
yeah, it's pretty much pretty much labor was super real from the moment that you stepped into the room. Um, and again, if you know anything about birth, if you're a birth keeper, if you're a doula, like if you're in the birth space at all, you know that when a woman starts second guessing herself, she's like, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if I can make it. That's when she is in transition. That is when she is so in between worlds that, in a medical sense, she's almost near completion and dilation, 7, 8 centimeters, whatever. You don't need a cervical check to know that. You can just look at the predisposition of the woman. So that was me at that time. And that's what he's saying, where he's like, what? How is this happening already? How are you already 8 centimeters? I just woke up.
Yeah. I was not aware that she was in labor since midnight.
Yeah. So that was fun.
So I stroll in, 4 AM, I'm watching her, monitoring her, timing her contractions. They seem to be real. I head out
Very real.
and I go pump up our, birth tub in Jax's room because Jax is out on the couch. I did not want him to wake up, and I'm just doing what I can. There's only a split second where I was just like, "What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?" Went back in the room, came back to her, rubbing her. She was rubbing a pillow. She was caressing a pillow, and then you say, "I need you." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, baby, I'm here. I'm filling up the tub." She's like, "No." I'm like, I'm just gonna go fill up the tub, like, it's already halfway done." It's like, "The baby's coming now." "No, the baby's coming now." Just the look in your eyes too was so definitive. So, she wasn't lying. I see something coming out, wasn't sure what it was, honestly.
Wait,
No?
wait.
Wait?
Yes, wait.
What am I waiting for?
Because you shared what you were doing. So as you were leaving, figuring out the birth tub, all this, okay, what was happening to me?
Yeah, what was happening?
Yeah, what was happening? So this is very crucial because after that transition point of the questioning of, I don't know if I could do it, and he's just like, yes, you can, yada, yada. Leaves. I flip over onto my other side, which is just interesting because this is the side that I've been sleeping on my entire pregnancy. I'm just more comfortable on this side. They say that women should be sleeping on their left side. They, in quotes, say that you should be sleeping on your left side because it's better for a baby and positioning and XYZ, but it never felt comfortable for me. So I flip over, I'm on my right side. I have this pregnancy pillow where it's 100% polyester, not happy about it, don't call the cops, but I start feeling this pillow, okay? Let me tell you this. I start feeling this pillow with every contraction, I'm, like, inhaling, my hands are on the pillow, caressing the pillow on all the way down, and then on my leg, and then as I exhale, up my leg, up on the pillow, and then I just have my hands in the air open as wide as I possibly can and try to have my mouth open as wide as I can. Granted, this is still pitch black. I'm in the dark. I'm pretty much by myself because, again, James is figuring out the birth pool. I feel like to an outside person, I look crazy, like crazy. And again, I would not feel comfortable. I would not have allowed myself to get this deep if, let's say, I had any type of witness there, even like a really, really close friend. I was sharing my experience with a friend over the phone, and I was like getting cringy about it, explaining it to her, and she is very understanding and she's amazing. She's a really close friend of mine. But if she was present physically in the room, I know myself and I know that I would have not allowed myself to get as deep as I was in that state. So I went somewhere where not only did I transcend pain, that there wasn't any pain, but quite literally there was pleasure present. And I will also say this, that in her book Portal, Yolanda Clark talks about how we have such a disjointed relationship with pleasure in our society, but specifically as women, right? Where you cannot be, well, you can do whatever you want, but there's a story related correlated to women who are sensual, right? Even if, oh, you're touching yourself in a non-sexual way, you just touch your face, like touch massage, or you massage your calf or whatever. It's like, ooh, okay, that feels good. Not in a sexual way, it doesn't have to be, but in a sensual way. And that's exactly what I was experiencing at that point after transition, where I was just like, this feels amazing. I was like, this feels incredible. Um, and I'm just gonna out myself here, but it felt like I was on ecstasy. I'm definitely not a partier now. I'm completely sober. I don't even have wine or anything like that. But, I was a teenager once and I definitely took Molly and other party drugs. And that was exactly what it felt like. And it's really hard to explain what that feels like to anybody who is listening who has never done those types of drugs. But if you do and you know what I'm talking about, yes, that is how it felt. So that was happening. Then James comes back in. Um, and at that point, I began to feel pushy. So with every exhale now, um, I pretty much only had 2 contractions
Yeah,
where it was
it
like this.
was quick.
Yeah.
Flipped over on your hands and knees.
Yeah, but before then, the look in my eyes that you're referring to was I started to feel pushy because as I was exhaling, it was no longer, "Oh, I'm feeling amazing. This pillow feels so good. Yay." Like, I'm basically like a Molly girl at Ultra Music Fest. Okay, it stopped feeling like that, and it started feeling like linebacker. Okay? So, that's when James comes in, and he says what he says. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I'm you're doing great. You're doing great, babe. I'm gonna blow up the birth tub." And I just look at him like a deer in headlights. I get that shot of adrenaline that happens as a hormonal cocktail right before women are about to push their babies out, and I'm like, no, because moments before this, as I was on my last ecstasy breath, I heard a voice saying, "Your baby is coming," and in my head, I'm like, "Yeah, duh, no shit." Right? I'm like, "Of course the baby is coming." I did not understand that that voice was telling me the baby's coming right now, like within the next contraction. So I tried to relay that with my eyes to James.
The message was clear.
Did I do it?
The message, it wasn't even you. It was like that voice
Speaking through me.
came out of your mouth, but you were still somewhere else. Like you equated to be on Molly, your eyes were like pitch black.
Really?
Yeah.
See
Now
that?
that I remember that.
That's interesting to well, I mean, you don't think that had anything to do with the fact that we were in darkness?
We had the red light on.
Wow.
Maybe.
See, you never told me that.
It was
Okay. Okay.
picking up.
Uh-huh.
So I see something. I go to get her phone because she was adamant that she wanted this recorded. We were recording our first home birth as well. And so I grab her phone really quick, and as soon as I turn back, the head is out. The entire head is out. I'm like, "Oh, she would not have made it to the tongue." She was
I
right.
wasn't lying. I
Nope.
told you that.
Head was out, and, just based off the coursework that I reviewed of yours, I knew that you were gonna have one more contraction, so I did what I could. You may have not liked it, I'm not sure. Me coaching you. Okay, baby. Well, got one more on the next one. Go with it. And sure enough, the baby came immediately afterwards. I guided the baby down to bed, and Jade yelled out, "It's a boy." I completely forgot that.
We were looking for that.
Yeah.
I was like, "What,
And
penis? What is that?"
celebrated inside a little bit
And outside.
and outside. And now I have a baby boy.
That's right. I think something that's really funny too, just before getting to that point of pushing the head out, was I get on my hands and knees, and in an act of trying to clear space and just give me more space so that I can like push my baby out, James removes my sacred polyester pregnancy pillow that I was just having an otherworldly experience with, and he moves it somewhere where I can't reach it. And I'm all on hands and knees and I'm just crying and sobbing and I'm like, "Where's my pillow?" I remember that. I was very distraught. And I'm just like, give me my pillow back. Like that was my form of anchor. That was my form of groundedness. Like I don't need people. I need a pillow, you know?
It's like
So that was just funny.
literally just trying to be mindful. And it's like, you can't do anything right now. So, and then me telling you to spread your legs a little bit more to give you more room. Yeah.
Because at that time, again, this is where us on the outside, even as birth workers, like we need to understand that simply your voice can be an intervention. Simply your voice. And that's not even talking about the energetics or anything like that. But again, well intended. He's just like, hey, your hips are kind of, a little close together. How is the head and the body going to fit through there? Meanwhile, I'm in another world. I'm in another brainwave state. And I get this visual of knees slightly in, feet slightly out. And then in my logic brain, I'm thinking, what? That helps the baby get through the outlet. How are we already here? Yeah, the internal rotation of the hip. How are we already here where I'm pushing the baby out of the outlet? Like I think we were both in denial as to how far along the labor actually was.
I definitely was.
I mean, me too, because I got the visual and I was like, are you sure? Anyway, without question, because nothing that far had thus far had led me wrong. So I went ahead and I had more of an internal rotation of the hip. That's what you were saying and seeing. Sorry, that's what you were seeing. And that's why you had said, can you open your hips wider? And I said, absolutely not. But I said, absolutely not in my head.
I
Because
didn't
you
know where
don't,
you were at.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's the point is that doctors, nurses, midwives, medwives, birth keepers, doulas, moms, grandmas, aunties, cousins, siblings. If we are saying something and coaching a woman out of the position that she's in, we are quite literally taking her autonomy away from her in the most well-intended, loving way, right? He didn't say that like, yeah, open your legs. So no, it wasn't aggressive or anything like that. He was responding to what he was seeing. But we don't know what is going on within the body and the mind and the spirit of a birthing woman, of a birthing woman. That makes sense. Oh, so,
I mean, the body's literally designed for this. So,
right. And there's no amount of coaching, honestly, I believe, unless a woman's totally just out of it.
yeah, trying to, I mean, bring her back. I wouldn't even know.
Well, I'm saying if
I don't
she's
know because you won't allow me to attend your birth. This is my second attended birth. But no,
anyway.
there's a few things that you said. So we have a beautiful baby boy. We were able to keep the placenta attached. We clamped after what, 2, 3 hours or so?
Yeah.
But the placenta had stopped pulsing at that point. The cord was white. So he has all of his blood, something that we had to fight for with the hospital birth. And as you were saying, it's like, how could you possibly go into those states of mind and allow yourself to feel that pleasure with someone that you're not comfortable with, but then let alone an OB, nurses, machinery, bright
Right.
lights.
Yeah.
It's like it's not possible. And my goal with producing this episode is not to bash or shame the medical system, the hospital. We've done that in the past. Me
we,
specifically,
I was like,
but you too. You played a role too. But I kind of just don't care anymore overall. Everything is going to keep going on in the external world, politics, this drug, that drug, you name it. And ultimately, you asked me one date, you had like this exercise where we were picking words, and the main thing that stuck out to me was autonomy. You asked several questions, and the word that kept popping up for me was autonomy. Autonomy.
Yeah, what's your core value?
People can do whatever they want. You can go about your pregnancy however you want. You could do whatever testing that you want to do, and that's fine. That's completely your decision.
Mhm.
Um, whatever you choose to do.
Just as what we chose was our decision.
Now, you were pregnant for a very long time. So, completely blissful pregnancy experience. Actually, let's continue with that. So, the difference between being in the hospital 3 days, being annoyed,
Mm,
not the greatest food, not the greatest water, not the greatest lighting, you name it. But then immediately after the birth, it's almost like life just continued, like you didn't even miss a step. We didn't miss a step. I went to cook breakfast immediately afterwards. I let you rest. You were in the comfort of your own home.
mhm.
Jax came in, Jax saw the baby.
Yeah, that's great.
There was no interruptions. It was almost like obviously something happened, but
It was very, very normal, and it is exactly what birth was designed to be, which is normal. It's like women are out in the fields, work in the fields up until the point where they can't anymore during their contractions. They squat behind a tree, birth the baby, birth the placenta, carry it back home, and then just like go on to bake sourdough bread or some shit, you know? It's like that's how it felt. I was almost suspicious,
yeah,
right? I said that. I was like, I'm suspicious with how incredible that was and how normal this like immediate postpartum is and third stage is because we're programmed for something to be wrong.
yeah,
We're programmed for the other shoe to drop. You just got to wait for it or what happens if, and we're always preoccupied with what happens if.
fear.
Yes.
And that's something that I said on my stories shortly afterwards was during the labor, once I actually knew something was happening, like this is the real deal,
Bless you.
there was no fear present. There was just presence.
Presence. Yeah.
There's I don't wanna even say reacting because I was trying to be proactive as well. I was responding
Yeah.
to whatever I was being presented with, but there was absolutely no fear. I had full confidence in your capabilities, and you got the birth that I prayed for you.
Thanks, man.
Okay. But okay. So we got the blissful birth and the restful period immediately afterwards, not like you have to go take a crappy vacation that you didn't even want in the first place. You don't have to pack up luggage, come back.
The most expensive vacation with the crappiest accommodations
Yeah.
and the worst wait staff.
And this was free. Should we say that? This was
Yeah,
free.
that's the point. I mean, well, that's not the point, but I'm saying it's a benefit. Oh,
This was free.
birth is free.
I don't know if they want you to know that.
I don't want you to know this.
Okay.
No,
So
no testing, no blood tests, no ultrasounds, no waiting rooms, no ambulance bill, no wasting money.
time and energy.
Yes. And that's just how we feel about it. Again, a lot of people see it as an investment. We saw it as an investment in our first, I gotta say, stop saying our, in my pregnancy. In my first pregnancy, we saw it as an investment to hire a midwife and have an extra set of eyes there. So it's not like hiring somebody else is a waste of money. It's a matter of your come from. Why are you making the decision to hire somebody? Why are you making the decision to hire an OB, which by the way, you hire them. They don't hire you, boo. You get to direct what it is that you want from them and how they can serve you best. You hire, you fire accordingly. And same way with doulas. Like as a doula, as a birth keeper, hire me. And if you change your decision, fire me. Please do not have me there if you do not. Well, I do not want you to feel as if I was the person who sabotaged your birth, right? I only want to be in a space where somebody feels 1000% comfortable in having me there. And whether that's hired or a friend or your mom, like only please have people in your birth space that you feel 1000% comfortable with and that are on the same exact page, not one page variant of what you want. Because if they're coming in with their fears, it will show up for you. The veil is so thin and you are oscillating back and forth between worlds that you will be able to pick up on the energy of the room. It will be palpable and it's very challenging to then that that's kind of what I'm saying about that's the role of the father being the archangel is to protect the energy of the space. Yes, the safety of the space, but very unless you're in the hospital, very rarely is somebody coming at you at your home with like a knife, and they're ready to stab you. That we're not really talking about that. Although that's very important as well. So,
Yeah.
go on.
So no testing. What did we do then?
Nothing.
What about palpating,
Oh,
heart
sorry.
tones?
Um, I took a pregnancy test. Some women don't even do that. And they just wait. But I was like, I want to know. So I took an at-home pregnancy test. Um, I made an appointment to do the 20-week anatomy scan and it just didn't work out. So I took that as a sign to just not reschedule and not do it. Um, James was working on his palpation skills, which he is now an expert at, by the way. So, ladies, we have another certified doula in the house. I'm kidding. You're never doing that. Um, um, so palpation. He helped. He helped me with a couple of spinning babies techniques towards the end, where we just wanted to ensure that the baby was in an optimal position. At a certain point, I thought he was totally not in a good position at all. I thought he was like transverse, which is now retrospectively not true. That's not the case. It was just the placement of the placenta and maybe some ab separation that I was feeling that I thought was his body. But we're doing palpation. We use the fetoscope very sparingly throughout the early pregnancy, but we were using it every single day towards the late couple of weeks of pregnancy, checking for heart tones. And that's really it in terms of anything like numerical, like getting data. But something that was very, very crucial and very, very important for me was having wise women in my immediate community, in person and virtually, that I was able to seek solace in. And they were like welcoming all of my crap with wide and open arms. And always saying, if I changed my mind that I didn't want to do it alone at the final hour, that they would be happy to come and witness me or attend me or help anything that I needed. And that was like very important for me to have that and have women that, yes, if I called upon them, I know that they would be there, but most importantly, that they believed in me, and they respected what it is that I wanted to do. And they were very conscious to not overstep that line and say like, you know, you should be there or you should do something different or whatever. No, it was like, I respect everything that you're doing and you tell me if you want me to do anything else. Um, very important.
You were getting quite a lot of contractions. There was a part of me that thought you were just going to go at 38 weeks. That was the number that I put out of my head. Clearly, that was not the case. And we've talked about this. I believe it, but not a woman. Don't have a uterus. Can't have a baby.
Can confirm that.
Um, the contractions. So we were discussing how every single contraction is not just a Braxton Hicks. It's not like a false contraction. It's the uterus like coning itself prior in order to prep it, or it's the helping the baby position in a certain way. Could you go a little bit more into that?
Yeah, I mean, like I had said earlier, I was experiencing prodromal labor, which by definition is false labor, which is stated to be contractions that do not contribute to active labor. That is the definition of that. I was experiencing that since 20 weeks, honestly, but more consistently, multiple times a day, very intensely, starting at 35, 36 weeks. So I thought it was going to be 36 weeks. I didn't want it to be, but I thought it was. And yeah, I love that you brought that up because how insulting to say that our bodies are doing something that's false, right? Everything that our bodies, if there's one thing that doesn't lie, it's our bodies. And it will never just do something on accident, or it will never do something without a very, very, very clear intention. And just because us as humans with our egos and our thinking logical brains can't imagine that the body would just be low key doing labor for 6 weeks, does not mean that that's not what it's doing. Every single contraction and sensation has a purpose and an intention. And I think our brains would explode if we knew and were present to all of the things that our body does for us every single day. Think about how many systems our bodies have. How many systems do we have? Like 13?
Think so.
Great, we should probably know that. But if we were present to every single hormonal signal or enzymatic reaction in the body, or every single time a red blood cell did this, it's like, oh my God, our brains would explode. So we we can't imagine it. But yeah, all those contractions, yes, it's toning the uterus. A lot of people will say that you have more of those prodromal contractions as you have subsequent pregnancies because the uterus is stretched out and it's tired, and like you're old and 35 now. Ugh. And this is your third baby. So you need all these contractions.
I was afraid the shade was going to come.
And that's simply just not the case. I don't believe it to be the case anyway. So yeah.
Let's talk about altered states of consciousness. So you clearly went somewhere else during pregnancy, but I know that Wapio has went into this further in depth. So for the audience that is completely unaware of this and may not ever experience it, given the environment,
Mm,
what is altered states of consciousness during labor? What's that about? Or even during pregnancy?
true that.
What state of brainwave states are you in?
Sure. Oh my gosh. Without running the risk of this being an entire podcast episode on its own, I'll just run through them very briefly. So the four main brainwave states, we have beta brainwave, which is where we live the vast majority of the time. It is a very fast moving brainwave, and it is where all logic and understanding come from. This is where your to-do lists are. Oh, did you let the dog out? You know, when is our hypnobirthing class scheduled for? The heart tones are at 150 beats per minute. That's so beautiful, right? The 20-week anatomy, all the numbers, right? The numbers and the logic. And beta brainwave state is fantastic. But this isn't where pregnant women live. Pregnant women live a state deeper than that, and that's alpha brainwave state. Alpha brainwave state is where everything's just super creative and, like I was saying, sensual. You become more of a sensual being. You're not just taking a walk in the park and labeling a flower as a flower. You actually stop and you examine the intricacies of that flower, and oh my God, that pink is so beautiful, and I didn't notice that there's a bee on there. Things that the beta brainwave state would simply just pass by and just say flower, flower, blade of grass, rock. That is the default brainwave state in pregnancy for women. They're slow, they're slower, they're sensual, they're softer, right? By nature. They're more creative. You're literally creating life every single day in your body. So how could you not have a default state of alpha? Yeah.
Since you mentioned that, I remember early on in the pregnancy, you were saying, why don't you join me in alpha state more often? Like, come over here, sucking in bed so much. And it was like, well, during a certain point of the pregnancy, um, I would just look up at the trees. I'm like, I feel like I'm on shrooms right now, but I know for certain I haven't microdosed or done anything recently.
Right.
So I was accessing those states a little bit. It was nice.
It's nice, right?
It was nice.
Just a little change up. You love your thinking brain. I love your thinking brain too, but you can access all of them. Um, Cool. So moving right along, right? Then we have an even slower state of brainwave, which is the theta brainwave state. And this is where you go to access all of the information about you. So, what do I need to do to heal my glaucoma? You know, what moves do I need to, what position do I need to be in labor next to birth my baby or to go meet my baby and bring him earthside? Um, what foods should I be eating, right, to nourish my body? You can access the entire library of information as it is according to you as a person in theta brainwave state. And how do we get into theta brainwave state? Sensory deprivation, meditation, prayer, sleep. We definitely run through all of these that I mentioned when we go to sleep. So there you have it. Then we have delta. Okay, delta brainwave state is the slowest brainwave state. I think it's about 1 to 5 cycles per second or something like that. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Delta brainwave state is super magical because this is cosmic consciousness. This is where you go to access every single piece of information about everything at once. Okay? And this is why it is, again, our brains, our bodies would explode into the ether if we spent too much time in delta, where our tiny puny brains would not be able to handle that amount of information. But this is where babies live. Babies live in the delta brainwave state. They are swimming in delta and theta, and they're just like here. They are the stars. They are what the stars are made of, is what we would say. And in labor specifically, women can go here. They can go to the delta brainwave state to directly communicate with their baby. It is effortless. And that is the only explanation that I could have for when I heard that voice of saying your baby is coming. Couldn't tell you who it was.
Is this guy?
Maybe, you know, but who knows? All I know is, I was definitely there. And it's super cool because you could oscillate out of these, right? And I was being witness to how I was oscillating in and out of all the different brainwave states throughout the process of labor, right? Where I visually saw the internal rotation of the hip, knees in, feet out. That was in theta, right? Infinite access to information about myself. Then I jumped up to beta and I had to put a label on it. What? Internal rotation of the hips? Where to push the baby out of the outlet of the pelvis, okay, and then dropped right back down to be able to to create the space in my body and to have a pain-free birth experience. And then back up, alpha, dreamy, listening to Stephen Halpern in the background. You, the heads out, right? Me experiencing it's a sensual, creative experience of me feeling my baby's head actually leave my body. Right? So throughout the entire pregnancy and birth more specifically, it was really awesome to be uninterrupted and unassisted and not coached, um, because hearing somebody's voice or picking up on someone's energy can staunch you getting into these deeper brainwave states simply because it keeps you in the thinking mind. It keeps you in beta brainwave state of what? What did they just say? Or the beeping of the fetal monitor in the hospital. Is my baby okay? This is the most, like, disturbing thing that we could be doing to women, birthing women, and I don't know how it's not illegal, but go ahead.
I'm curious, since you mentioned that, if like the drugs
Hmm,
kind of restrict you from accessing any further states.
100%, all by design.
Just let it go.
Yeah, the epidural, right? Fentanyl, the
Keep you here.
hardcore drugs. Yes.
Keeps you. It's like you're trying to avoid the pain, but all you can think about is the pain.
Mhm. And I know a lot of women who have received the epidural, and they're just like, labor was smooth sailing from there. And that's true. I mean, that could be true. That's 100% true for them. I'm not taking that experience away from them. But did it take away the pain, or It's kind of like a what came first, the chicken or the egg, where you were just stuck in a certain brainwave state. You were not able to go somewhere where pain didn't exist for you or it faded to the background. And because of that reason, the epidural gifted you pretty much with reprieve, with saying, okay, we're just going to numb this area for you so your brain can stop connecting that pain and making this feedback loop of, oh, ow, 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 pain. Um, yeah,
It reminds me of, it's like, don't think of a red elephant.
of course.
What are you going to think about?
A blue elephant.
You're going to think about the elephant for sure.
I know. Exactly.
So perhaps a stupid question then. What did it feel like when Journey actually came out of you?
My body.
Yeah. Was it painful at all in that instant, in that moment?
No. And again, so many women we talk about, or they talk about the ring of fire, right? Like when the baby actually comes through the canal and the head is born, where it is the most intense burning sensation that you will experience on your vagina. You can call it what it is. Anatomical terms are cool. And I was present to that sensation. Like I felt all of it, but I wasn't making that feedback loop story that this is painful. It was simply just a sensation. And that is so wild to me because if you think about putting your hand on a stove, right? It's like, ow, holy crap. Like that was hot. That burned me. And now you learn, right? It's like, okay, when I touch this, this is bad. Don't touch it because it's painful. So again, it's really interesting, right? Where we have this feedback loop system in our brains to protect us. So you put your hand on a stove, right? Ow, that's hot. You pull your hand off. Now your brain makes the connection. That's hot. That's painful. Let's not do that again. Unless we want to experience that level of pain. So I have no doubt in my mind that this is exactly what is happening when we are labeling, let's say, like something like the ring of fire or painful contractions or even the word labor, right? It already instills and has this connotation that is hard, hard, hard work, um, sweaty, hard work. And my point in sharing all this is that that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. And my hope with sharing my personal experience is not to sway you, not to convince you, not to justify my choices, because ultimately I didn't have to do this, 7 days postpartum at all. I did this because I wanted to, and because I wanted to act as and represent a population of women because I am no super ordinary, ultra, mega, super powerful, like hero woman. I'm really not. I'm a normal woman who chooses to take care of herself, chooses to take radical responsibility over the outcomes of my life, trusts in God and his plan that he has for me, my body, my family. And I choose sovereignty as much as I possibly can. And that has given me the pure amount of peace and happiness and joy and fulfillment and presence that anything else has not. No amount of drugs in the world, no amount of weed, no amount of hedonistic behavior like going out to eat on the weekends or alcohol or Netflix binging. None of that has been able to give me the amount of fulfillment that everything else that I just told you has. So, um, yeah, for anyone who's listening, again, free birth is not for everybody. And I'll never claim that it is. And I'll never claim that that's the right decision for you. But if you feel like God has placed it on your heart that this is something that you would want to experience, whether for yourself, for your family, or for whatever reason, then I'm simply here to share my story to say you can do it. And there's absolutely nothing that's standing in your way other than yourself. And you get to make that powerful decision if it's something that is really calling you.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yay!
So you crushed it throughout your entire pregnancy up till about 38 weeks. What do you feel like was the big difference there compared to the first one? What helped you continue to work out? You had your work ins where you would go to get adjustments and such. What do you think overall contributed to what you experienced throughout the pregnancy up till that point, and then also now, knock on wood, it's only been a week, but
Mm.
you seem to be handling postpartum very, very well.
Yeah.
What helped you?
Well, I'll say first and foremost, what helped me is, well, there's 3 main things that help me. It's
Not having a retarded husband?
number 1, ladies, number 1 hack, don't marry a dweeb. No. So, well, yes, but no. I would say the 3 things that really helped me were education, reps, and support. So, education, literally just having more information under my belt as to not just birth, right? Like, not just like, this is 7 centimeters. This is just whatever, just boring information, childbirth education, but having more of like I was saying that I received through the matrona under Wapio and the other wise women in that community of just stories. This is how we learn is through stories of other women, of other families, of what's possible. And that was where my education came from. Is like ancestral education, traditional education. Excuse me. And obviously all the other things about physiology. Really, just like understanding how to palpate, understanding how to read heart tones, understanding pelvic floor fitness and how I can support my pelvic floor for holding up a baby, over 8-pound baby in my uterus, and then healing afterwards. Um, Again, very strategic movements in the gym where I'm not just like throwing weights around. I'm participating in functional patterns, which, don't really love the practitioner that quote unquote created it. Whatever. You made that face as if anyone in the world loves Natty Aguilar. But point is, neither here nor there. I have found an amazing stop making that face. I found an amazing gym here in South Florida, and again, we'll plug it in the show notes. And they have amazing trainers there that have supported me in learning more about my body and how it can move in a way that is very biomechanically advantageous. Um, so those things, as well as just learning more about what my body has needed over the last couple of years in terms of nutrition. So for the past 2.5 years, honestly, 3 years almost at this point, I have removed a lot of plant products from my diet, and my bloating has gone down, my indigestion has gone down, my skin has cleared up significantly, my brain fog has almost eliminated. And I attribute a lot of that to my nutrition. I would say like about 80-90% nutrition. And then the extra little bit would be what I was talking about: pelvic floor fitness, training, functional patterns, XYZ.
And what does that look like now? Because during the first pregnancy, we were kind of in the whole repeat realm, the
Mm,
adrenal cocktails,
mhm.
which I wasn't happy about because I know on Thanksgiving Day, when I weighed myself, I was 191 pounds, 20 pounds heavier than I believed that it was. So that lit the fire in my ass. But what does it look like now? So you remove the plant material. What do you focus on?
I'm focusing on protein. I would say I'm very protein led. And because of that, it's easier to get more fat, if that makes sense. So it's easier for me to take in more fat when it's already on a ribeye, let's say. So I'm simultaneously meeting my protein goal and getting good fats in, as well as eggs and cooking in butter and like cheese, raw dairy and things like that. Whereas I know for a lot of women, they struggle with, well, where do I get my fats from? But they're primarily on a plant-based diet or a grain-based diet. So, of course, it seems impossible. What am I supposed to do for fat? Eat animals. It's in there. It's like right there. And the simpler the better for me. I don't want to have to think about like macros or calories. Never counted a calorie in either of these pregnancies, never counted a macro. It wasn't until you told me how many grams of protein I was having in the breakfast that you've made me. Shout out to you for keeping me fed. He knew. He knew. He was like, "Yes, I'm doing this for the because I love you, and this is my act of a love language, and I care about having a healthy son or daughter." But honestly, he knew that if I was not fed, it was not gonna be good for either of us. He knew that he probably would have got stabbed.
You said the other day, I forgot what I had mentioned. It's like, have they fed her? Have they tried feeding her? Like, and you're starting off literally like my dream, eating ribeyes and eggs every single morning, nearly. And I mean, that just carries you on throughout the day. I've personally noticed. So you mentioned the emotional outburst, how this pregnancy was emotional. That's why we thought it was a girl at a certain point. But that was, in my opinion, obviously there's the hormonal changes that are occurring. But since we've discussed this, which freaking it blew my mind. What, like rockets went off in my head. I'm gonna say in a second.
Okay.
But after the 38 weeks when you kinda became a little bit more immobile, had to get the wheelchair and stuff for you, you said crazy town. I didn't really experience that. If anything, I felt like it was very, very mild. I have experience now from one pregnancy what things can look like if there's, like, any type of resentment or, just, like, subtle cues and, like, irks, and I get that there's gonna be something, right? There's always gonna be something,
Of
but
course.
testing, testing. So there was a point, and I want to be as vulnerable as possible here because I've had gentlemen on my podcast recently, or in the past that have mentioned how difficult it was for them during pregnancy. So for any of the guys that are out here, it's like you need to buckle up during this time. Like feed your woman, give her the ribeyes, give her the eggs, feed her the fatty stuff. That helped me at least this time around. But just know that she is literally creating a life, whole new set of organs, a whole new being inside of her, and a brand new organ in the placenta. So that helped me kind of just center myself, ground myself. If things were escalating a little bit, I'm like, she has an entire being in her body, and that has to be extremely, extremely uncomfortable. But you mentioned how if you're kind of like picking at something and things are escalating a little bit, that this is testing. And I don't know why it blew my mind the other day because I should have known this. I have known this. You can read it in The Way of the Superior Man, but this was serving as a way to test me and allow an opportunity for growth to actually be able to sustain the family and have 2 kids. Because there was times when I would get quite pissed off.
Yeah.
And it had never really occurred to me before, but the thought did creep in where it's like, is this going to be what the next 18 years of my life looks like? And I'm sure men have actually had these conversations with
100%.
themselves. And it occurred on a frequent basis at a certain point. But morally, I knew deep down, because I'm not a coward, or I'm not shots fired. I don't really want to say that because the situation is obviously individual. You never know if it's an actually abusive situation. I would say yes, get out of there. But it was never to that point where I felt like my life was in danger or my son was in danger. And so morally, I knew that I would not be able to live with myself if I ever actually did take that route,
Which is
leaving.
right.
I would not be able to live with myself. I don't know how I would be able to live with or look at my son again. So obviously, I did not choose that. But there was a point when I noticed, and I told you this the other day, that it kind of just you let off.
Mhm.
So what was that point?
Yeah. Well, what he's referring to, we had a conversation like earlier this week about about testing, about how women, yes, it is by our nature to test our man. And it just is so hyper present, especially in the first trimester of pregnancy. And that is because on the outside, she looks the same. You know, she maybe hasn't even made a birth announcement yet because for whatever reason, a lot of people don't want to make a birth announcement. Well, not for whatever reason, because if there is a miscarriage in the early pregnancy, they don't want to tell people early about being pregnant and then having to tell the same people that were very excited for you that they then lost the pregnancy. So she feels alone. Maybe she hasn't told that many people that she's pregnant. She doesn't look pregnant yet. She doesn't have that pregnancy glow that comes in that second trimester. Maybe she's sick. She's tired, right? She's nauseous. She's like, you're disgusting because your breath smells like coffee and I want to throw up all over you, right? So with all that being said, she also it's very common for a woman in her first trimester to feel abandoned. And you did this to me, right? Like you made me pregnant, and look at you living your life. I'm now resentful to you because you get to go to work and you feel fine, and I'm sacrificing everything. I'm sacrificing my body. I'm sacrificing my career if you have one. I'm sacrificing time with my older kids because now I'm more exhausted or whatever it is, right? Whatever's showing up for you. It's very easy to then become resentful to our partners. And on the outside, like you was saying, on the outside, men are like, whoa, we planned this pregnancy, right? We really wanted this. We wanted a second child. We wanted our fifth child, whatever it is. And why are you acting like this? It's because it's in a woman's nature to test. If you cannot handle me, when the baby isn't even here yet and the chaos hasn't even begun, how are you as a man going to be able to lead us when it's me in my most vulnerable state in the early postpartum with this with this useless newborn, right? Like he can't do anything. He can't feed himself. He can't use the toilet by himself. He can't defend himself from a bear. He can't do anything. So you now need to take care of yourself and you need to be able to protect us. Can you do that? Right? So it's like to men how they receive it is like we're just flicking your freaking ear over and over and over again. We're just like flick flick flick. Can you handle it?
I would say your balls.
Your balls, whatever it is. All day long. Flick flick flick. Can you handle it? Are you sick of me yet? Flick flick flick. Can you handle it? Are you going to be able to be strong enough to lead this new family this is your seed, right? Or are you going to leave? So again, it's a matter of if you're interested in taking radical responsibility. Granted, again, this is like there's a difference between a woman's natural need to test and just being horrible. So understand that there's a fine line, of course. I'm not saying that if you're having knives thrown at you, there's a different situation. But the vast majority of the time, her hormonal fluctuations and her ability to test you is very grand in the first trimester of pregnancy and can go all the way through, right? So when you had asked, there was a point in the pregnancy of this pregnancy where I kind of took my foot off the gas, so to speak, of testing you. What happened? What had happened was I finally felt safe. Right? There was something, my central nervous system regulated to your central nervous system where I felt safe and I felt secure. And I felt as if, yes, you have passed this test as a worthy suitor of the leader of our new family of four. Right? And I mean this in a very real physical sense because you completely stepped it up in your own personal health journey. Like you've always taken care of yourself. But in these past few months of the late pregnancy, this is like the best that I've seen you look. And I'm not trying to hype you up because I would never do that to your ego. I'm not an ego stroker, but I'm like, damn, babe, like you look better than when I first met you. Like what were you trying to get hot and leave me? No, I'm just kidding. I'm like, you look amazing, right? And that is because of the work that you've put in. And I took my foot off the gas of testing you when you became a better version of yourself. And that's all I wanted for you. And that's all women they ever truly want. They don't want a little bitch boy that they could just like slap around and tell them what to do. Like not a real woman anyway. Um, and a woman who says that, she actually just means that she just wants you to step up. She doesn't want a man who's trainable, because men who are trainable are feminized, and then she has to be in her masculine. Polarity works in relationships, but truly the default of a woman is that she wants to be in her feminine. She wants you to lead. She wants you to be strong physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. She wants you to be the best version of yourself. So that way it reiterates the permission and the opportunity for her to step into her version of her best self. And yeah, at the end.
It got to a point, since you mentioned, like, you wanna see us become the best version of ourselves.
Yeah.
There was a point where I was just like, "I am trying my best right now, and if that's not good enough, then whatever, I'm just going to dial in harder on self-improvement, work on myself. If you like it, cool. If not, also cool, don't care." Kinda care, because in the grand scheme of things, I would like a family unit held together. I think that's the strongest bond that there is, and that's why everything is kind of put out there in order to separate the family unit.
Yeah.
But I noticed as soon as I just dialed in, locked in even more, that went away. And the moment that you said that, I feel like you unlocked the cheat code. I was like, I wasn't supposed to hear that. Did that just slip out of your mouth?
You're welcome.
But I can only imagine what this scenario would look like had I not made the changes that I did at the beginning of the year
And what were those changes?
when I was dealing with the chronic
Oh,
neck
yeah,
pain,
yeah,
could
yeah.
barely walk.
Yeah.
We'd be miserable right now. So
Yeah, that's also the point, is like, holy crap, we're no special people. Like I had just explained before, I'm no super ordinary, ultra superwoman, right? Like I'm just a person who makes choices. Literally, that's it. And you can make choices too. And you do. We all make choices every single day. But the point is, it's like we're no like super power couple. We're no perfect people. But at the end of the day, we do really are can do our best and our due diligence to be very conscious about absolutely everything that we do, everything we put in and on our body, everything that we like absorb, the way that we parent, the way that we live, the way that we move. We're very intentional with those things. So, and we still experience this, right? So, I said this almost every day in pregnancy, especially the days that were hard and towards the end. I'm like, how do people who don't take care of themselves do this? How are you pregnant when you don't have any muscle integrity in your body? How do people live this way? How, when you're undernourished or not eating the right foods, like you baseline feel like crap, how are you able to sustain I don't know. It was blowing my mind. So the point is, it was hard enough for us, and we do a really decently good job, I would say, of taking care of our bodies. It's like, I don't know how other people are doing it, man.
how do you sustain a relationship? How do you sustain like
Kids, a job, how are you going to work? Like,
I mean that's an honest question. It
it
may
is.
be perceived as like a judgment, but it's
No,
an honest question. If
I'm
someone
concerned.
yeah,
Like, I want your life to be easier. That's what I'm saying, and that's exactly why we do what we do. That's why we became coaches, is because we've suffered so much with our own health issues, mental health issues, and we now realize that that's simply a choice based off of your inputs. So, no, it's not a judgment at all. I'm concerned for you, and I would love to just support you in making your life and your pregnancy easier. Than it doesn't have to be that hard.
yeah, it really does not have to be that hard. You said you like things simple. I like things simple. You asked what changes that I made. In the beginning of the year, January 1st, I decided to go carnivore. I removed the very last bit of plant food, which was
Oh yeah, that was
uh, blueberries and also a little bit of raw honey. But this was contributing to very, very painful knee issues. And I was damn near useless, honestly. I felt like a shell of myself at that time. So you say like, yeah, okay, I look better now, and I honestly feel like I'm on top of the world now. I'm very impressed with. I did a workout this morning, just the way that things feel,
Mhm.
and the reason why I do this podcast, the reason why I do the things that I do that I coach is because this is available to everyone. We are not special people.
Right.
Maybe we do special things compared to what the common person is doing, but you have access to this too.
Yeah.
You can experience a birth like this too. You can experience a pregnancy and a postpartum like this as well. And it can be done very, very simply. I don't want to dive too much into like carnivore and stuff. Do I believe that's the end all be all? Not in particular. But I have episodes on that. I don't want to dive any further into those discussions.
But also just to note, I was not carnivore in I never have been carnivore, and I wasn't carnivore in my pregnancy, and I still had an incredible pregnancy. So, um, we have this debate very frequently about, what, like, optimal nutrition for men versus women, right? And we just have this debate constantly. But again, it's like we're allowed to be two completely different people, and still take care of ourselves and listen to our bodies respectively, right? Like I could be like, what? Blueberries, so many antioxidants. You should be having blueberries. It's like it doesn't agree with him. It gives him gout-like symptoms. Why would I be shoving it down his throat, right? And it's like for me, having more carbohydrates, not more, but having any carbohydrates in my diet makes me feel better than when I don't. It just is right now in this season, and maybe things will change and maybe things will flip and maybe he'll so funny to think about. Maybe he'll be a fruitarian, right? Probably not.
I have followed some pages where I was impressed, but I'm very doubtful at the moment.
Yeah.
Do what works for you, but actually know what works
Right.
for you. Like if you were eating McDonald's, I would not be with you. I would just say that straight up.
I wouldn't be with you I wouldn't even be with me.
Um,
Divorce from
yeah.
myself.
Mhm. Reflecting back, it's only been a week. Would you do anything differently?
In my whole life, or what are we talking
No, throughout the pregnancy, is there anything that you would have liked to have done differently?
um I always say that I don't make mistakes. There's only ever lessons or joyful outcomes. So I would say no, right? However, if I could wave a magic wand, I would add more trust. So trusting, go ahead.
Do you have more trust now? Do you have more faith in higher power, God? Because that's what this ultimately was. It was a leap of faith, full surrender
Yeah,
to creation.
of course. Well, that's what I'm saying is adding more trust. And I that's why it felt like I was on a roller coaster because I was like, "I trust this. I trust God. I trust my body. Why am I still having these fears?" And like you had said, you're just like, "This is just your initiation. This is something you have to go through. It's not gonna stop until you just experience it and you are on the other side, no matter what the other side looks like. Like, you just have to do it."
You got to go through the process. It's
It's like,
like
do
you're not
it.
going to have the six pack abs and stuff by not going to the gym. Maybe if you're, yeah, well,
Unless you're sick.
terrible or very skinny.
Yeah.
Terrible example.
Yeah, that's a bad
But
example.
you get the point. It's like in order to actually have a body that is desirable, you need to work for it.
100%.
In order to have faith, in order to have trust, you need to be challenged. You need to have
Yes.
obstacles put in your way to test if you actually do want this.
Well, that's my point is that it's yeah, I can go and wave the magic wand and say like, "Oh, what I wish I did differently is add more trust," but ultimately, by simply just experiencing it where I was at, was perfect because I got what I needed in order to move forward, in order to add more trust, if that makes sense. How did I know that trust was missing if I didn't have these
Yeah.
fears, you know? So, it's all perfect, only all the time.
Cool. I have not discussed when you will be returning to work, but how could the audience, if they are local, potentially work with you as a coach for training or as a doula?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. I treat Instagram like my website. So at Intuitive Health Guide. Um, and you could just find me there, send me a DM, say what's up, have a little convo with me. Right now, yes, I am obviously on maternity leave, but when I do return back, I will be offering obviously my birth keeping services. So a doula, birth witness, birth companion, childbirth education, specifically for people wanting a home birth. And that could be anything from a free birth to a more managed birth with a hired midwife or birth center births. At this time, I do not attend hospital births, but I s- still work in the physical realm with people who do hospital births. So pelvic floor fitness classes, group training, private one-on-ones, nutrition, virtually. I come up with a package that works for you. I don't have anything that's particularly set, but those are my offerings. And again, if you're interested in just knowing a little bit more about me, we can just like hang out over on Instagram, and that's where you can find me.
You have these books here. What's up with these books? I'm gonna shout these out really quick, or we're just using them for reference?
I was just using them for reference if I needed to. We were talking about fears a lot, and one of the books that I had, one of the bajillion books that I have read over the course of the last 2 years is "Birthing from Within" by Pam England, and she talks about in one of her chapters, she calls it strategic worrying. And when I was reading this, I got a huge sense of just relief because I felt as if my fears were validated. um, I had a fear that in having a fear, I would manifest that fear into reality. And she goes in to use an example. She was teaching a childbirth education class, and she had like 6 couples in that class. And she had one couple who every single class would ask questions and try to educate themselves because the one thing that they didn't want it was a C-section in the hospital. So they were like, how could we avoid this? They were worried about it. And to the point of ad nauseum, like as an instructor, she's like, okay, like this is annoying. Like you're asking a bunch of questions and it's kind of getting a little annoying. However, after all these couples, all 6 couples had their babies and came back and told their stories, the couple that was always asking the questions and kind of had this fear constantly nagging at them, and they were able to address those fears in the pregnancy and release them, that was the only couple that came back and did not have a C-section. So the 5 others did, and they didn't. So again, she calls it strategic worrying, where the only red flag of, let's say, a couple or a pregnant woman is when they have no red flags. And it is very normal to have the 3 biggest common fears of, I will not be able to handle the pain of pregnancy, I will not come out alive, like I will die, or my baby will die or have some sort of abnormality that is or dysfunction that's severe. So if you're thinking logically, again with the beta brain wave, right? You're thinking logical mind, there the odds of a woman dying in childbirth in this modern time in 2025 is almost 0%. So logically, we would think that that's not a valid fear, right? But it still is. It's one of the top 3 fears. So why would either of the other 2 be quote unquote valid fears? Right? So again, um it's just something to consider when fears come up, whether pregnant or otherwise. Maybe you're in your trying to conceive era, or what I say is preconception era, because you don't try. You either do or you don't. Um, but if you're in your preconception, right, of oh my God, can I handle being a parent? Can I handle the pregnancy? Can I give up the previous version of myself if this would be your first pregnancy? It's like all valid fears, and allowing yourself to have those fears, and allowing yourself to give the fear a voice of saying, hey, for the next 5-15 minutes, I'm just going to go ahead and give you the mic, and you can pout and stamp your foot and scream and roll on the floor like a toddler who you just peeled a banana wrong for. Okay? Go ahead. You have the stage. And then say, thank you. I'm taking the mic back. If you want, you can go ahead and continue to have your pity party, but we're not putting it on the main stage anymore. And that is the main thing that has supported me in being able to release the fear. Just working it through my system, working it through my body, allowing it to leave, thanking it for all the lessons that it gave me. It not only gave me, but you as well, I feel, and moving forward and stepping into a new moment. Yeah.
If you don't give it a mic, then it's just gonna pick up a loudspeaker. It's gonna
Later
keep
on.
screaming.
Yep.
Get louder and louder. Well, thank you for joining me, my love. I am very proud of you.
Thank you.